When you picture the American South, what do you see? For so many of us, it's that just breathtaking explosion of color, right? These cascading waves of pink, white, and crimson. Well, you're looking at the world of azaleas and camellias. They are the absolute botanical heart of the region. But, and this is a big but, getting that picture-perfect landscape is anything but simple.
And this quote just frames the whole challenge perfectly. We're not just talking about planting a pretty shrub here. This is a real science. It's a mix of soil science, climate knowledge, and even a little bit of engineering, all to create this living work of art.
So that's the big question we're diving into today. We're going to pull back the curtain and uncover the very specific, science-backed secrets that make the difference between a thriving southern garden and, well, a sad, struggling one. Let's get into it.
All right, first things first, let's meet our stars. We've got azaleas, which, fun fact, are technically in the genus Rhododendron, and then we have their super elegant cousins, the camellias. These two are the undisputed icons that really set the whole seasonal rhythm of the South.
But here's the thing, these plants don't just pop up on their own. They're often strategically planted to work together. Think of it like a relay race of color. First, you get the fall-blooming Camellia sassafras, which can handle a bit more sun. Then, as they start to fade, they pass the baton to the classic winter-blooming Camellia japonica. And just as they're finishing up, bam, the evergreen azaleas just explode in the spring. It's this beautifully orchestrated performance that goes on for months.
And this is way more than just gardening. It's a whole cultural phenomenon. This continuous show of color creates what's known as the Southern Winter Garden, a concept so important that it inspires huge tourism events, like the North Carolina Azalea Festival. It's a massive part of the region's identity.
Okay, here we go. This is the first, and you could argue, the most important secret of all. It all starts underground. It's all about chemistry.
The key word you need to know is calcifuges. It's a fantastic word that literally means calcium fleeing. Basically, these plants are built to thrive in acidic, low pH soils. And that range they need, it is incredibly specific. If you get this one thing wrong, pretty much nothing else you do is going to matter. So, why is the pH such a big deal? Well, it all comes down to food. In the right kind of acidic soil, crucial stuff like iron is dissolved and totally available for the plant's roots to slurp right up. But if that pH starts to creep up and the soil becomes alkaline, that very same iron chemically locks itself away. It's still in the soil, but the plant is literally starving.
And this type of starvation has a name. The most common telltale sign that your soil chemistry is completely off is a condition called iron chlorosis.
The symptom is absolutely unmistakable. The new leaves turn this sickly yellow, but the veins stay bright green. It creates this really sharp contrasting pattern. It's basically plant anemia. The iron is there, but the plant can't access it because of the high pH. And if you don't fix that underlying soil problem, the plant will eventually just give up and die back. Okay, so let's say we've mastered the chemistry. That's only half the battle. Now we have to put on our engineering hats and talk about physics, specifically water and drainage.
This bathtub analogy is so powerful because it's so accurate. A huge part of the South has this really heavy, dense clay soil. So if you dig a normal hole and fill it with nice, fluffy soil, you think you're helping, but you're not. You've actually created a bathtub that will fill up with water and literally drown the roots. And yep, roots need oxygen just as much as they need water. This leads to fatal root rot.
So how do we avoid the dreaded bathtub? We do the exact opposite of what feels natural. You dig wide, but you don't dig deep. Then, and this is the most important part, you plant it high, so the top of the root ball is actually sticking up above the ground. Then you backfill with a good soil mix and kind of slope it up to the plant. This makes sure water always drains away from the most sensitive part of the plant. So here's the key takeaway. Just remember the 1-inch rule. At a bare minimum, that root ball needs to be sitting 1 inch above the surrounding soil grade. That single step is the most important thing you can possibly do to stop the plant from suffocating and rotting. It's totally non-negotiable. All right, so we've covered the chemistry and the physics of getting the plant in the ground. But creating that iconic look isn't a one-and-done thing. It's an ongoing process, and success is all about maintenance and, maybe most importantly, timing. Right, so to maintain that perfectly acidic soil, you need a whole toolkit. You've got your slow, long-term options like elemental sulfur, which you'd apply in the winter to gradually lower the pH over time. Then you've got your fast-acting fixes, like ferrous sulfate, that can help a yellowing plant pretty much right away. And of course, you've got pine straw,
every southern gardener's best friend. And listen, even your choice of mulch is a critical chemical decision. It is not just there to look pretty. It's an active part of your soil management plan. Pine straw and oak leaves? Perfect. They break down and release mild acids. But a lot of common hardwood mulches can actually raise the soil pH as they decompose, undoing all your hard work. And please, never ever pile it up against the trunk.
And with these plants, timing is absolutely everything. You plant in the winter, you fertilize and prune right after they finish blooming in the spring, that way you don't accidentally cut off next year's flowers. Then, and this is a big one, you have to stop all fertilizing by midsummer. Why? Because if you fertilize too late, you'll encourage this tender new growth that the very first freeze is just going to zap, and that can severely damage the plant.
Okay, let's zoom out for a second. The story of these plants in the South isn't some static thing. It's always evolving. It's starting to move beyond just the traditional Asian imports to really embrace the region's own native treasures.
And this is where things get really cool. The South is actually home to some stunning native azaleas. They're deciduous, meaning they lose their leaves. But what they lack in year-round foliage, they more than make up for with these incredible, intense fragrances. We're talking everything from sweet and spicy to honeysuckle-like scents that most of the modern hybrids just don't have. Plus, they're super important food sources for local pollinators.
Yeah, this whole shift toward using native plants is part of a much larger cultural conversation. That traditional image, of the azalea bells and their big antebellum dresses is being seen through a more modern lens now. It's opening up a dialogue about how to create a more inclusive and biodiverse vision of what a southern garden can be.
So, at the end of the day, true mastery in the modern era is about integration. It's about combining that deep scientific knowledge of soil chemistry and planting techniques with a forward-looking wisdom that embraces native plants and sustainability. That's how this legacy really continues for the next generation.
And this quote just says it all so beautifully. Whether it's the wild, spicy scent of a native azalea or the formal, perfect bloom of a classic camellia, this is the palette that paints the southern landscape. They truly are, and they will continue to be, its living, blooming heart.
And that really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. It's a challenge, really, to see our own gardens not just as collections of pretty plants, but as living stories. Landscapes that can honor a complex history, while at the same time building a vibrant, sustainable, and ecological future.